Marc, CEO, First Class Metals. We're a UK listed company, main board UK, with our operations in Northern Ontario, Canada. And I'd like to take you through some of our properties today. The company was set up 18 months ago by two of the founders, James and Ayoub. Since then, it's come on leaps and bounds. We've got a standard listing in the UK. We've got our flagship North Hemlo property, which we listed the company on. We've got 7 other properties in the highly mineralized and very prospective Hemlo belt. And last year we signed an agreement to purchase another property a little bit further away, still in northwestern Ontario. It's a retired high-grade gold mine. We've conducted historic reviews on all of the properties. The Sunbeam gold mine is ongoing at the moment, and we've just completed our first field season exploring those properties. We're also in advanced negotiations to purchase a hard rock lithium property. Apart from that, we are continually looking for other opportunities to increase our portfolio. As everyone knows, exploration is like a conveyor belt. You put properties on at the beginning, you appraise them, and then you develop them, or they fall by the wayside. We've got a very strong board and management, 3 executive directors, myself, James and Ayoub, who, as I mentioned, are the founders of the company. A lot of international experience, also brought by Marc and Danish Barmer in international finance and the Canadian mining scene through Danish. So I'm the technical side. We have James, who's the corporate and the financial side. He's backed up by Ayoub, and as I say, Marc and Danish bring a wealth of experience to the board as well. And Nicholas Lee, who's well known in the financial markets in the city. Why Canada? Well, it's one of the go-to places in the world. It's ranked very highly. I'm not going to read everything that's on the slides, by the way, people. The deck will be available in the foyer as you leave, or it will be on our website, or I also think you can get it through AJ. So I'm just going to pick out the pertinent points. As I said, we're 100% owner of 7 claims, over 180 square kilometers, mostly, as you can see here, in the Hemlo-Schreiber area. Canada and Ontario rank very highly as places to go for exploration. Not only is there a frenetic exploration activity in Ontario, but the fiscal system, the security of tenure, sovereign risk is very low in Canada and obviously in Ontario as well. So it's a go-to place. There's a lot of big hitters exploring in there. The Hemlo area is slightly, for me, anomalous, excuse the pun, in so much that there's only one really large gold mine there. That's the Barrick gold mine, which is like 23 million ounces. Most other greenstone belts in the world, that's a geological term, I'll try not to get too technical. Most other greenstone belts in the world, if you've got 1 million ounce deposit, chances are you've got half a dozen. They tend to move in groups. So there's the Barrick one, then there's the Silver Lake one over to the east there. But other than that, as yet, we haven't found the next one, but we're on the case. I'm not going to run through all of our properties. I've picked the highlights of some of them. As I say, we currently have 8 on our portfolio. With the addition of the lithium, it might be 9. I've started off with Enable, and we will get a little bit geological here. You see this contact here between the Terrace Bay batholith in the southeast and the more mafic rocks in the northwest. As I say, I'll try not to get too technical, but where you have 2 major rock suites or terrains meeting, the structure is very conducive, shall we say, for mineral emplacement. And there's a number of gold occurrences to the southwest along this occurrence. And on our property was the historic occurrence. Yes, a modest 2 grams, but nonetheless gold, and it lines up with this contact. So we went back in there with the guys this year, and we took 80 rock samples over a course of a week or so when they're in there. And for anyone who's slightly geological minded, that looks juicy. To anyone, that looks juicy. And the historic 2 grammer was here, but we identified other samples going up to 7 grams gold, and crucially, and a little bit sort of rarely as well in these terrains, up to 3 ounces of silver. I mean, I'm not saying there isn't silver around. You'll see some more silver grades later on, but it's not a common association, gold and high grade silver in these terrains. As I say, it's not uncommon, but it's not the norm. So we went out there and we amplified the original showing, and we've now identified a new one. So pretty logically, what we will be doing when the field season starts after the thaw in April, May, is we'll be going back out there, and there's a lot of this contact that still needs to be explored, apart from extending the area that we already know. The guys will be out there in the winter on skidoos, and they will be sampling the lake sediments, which is one of the few exploration methods that you can use in the winter. And that means going out onto the lake, which obviously is very frozen, boring a hole through the ice and dropping a huge steel torpedo on a rope down into the water. It hits the bottom, fills up with gunge from the bottom, and they just take it out as a sample. So we'll be doing a series of lake sediments. You can see them here throughout the property, and then in the thaw we'll go back and carry on exploring. McKellar, this just amplifies what I was saying earlier, is that you can see some very large silver values here, 37 grams of silver in that, over an ounce of silver. This is the one I was looking for, sorry. 600 grams, 20 ounces of silver. So there is high-grade silver in this area. McKellar is, I think, a property with huge potential, not only because it has gold and because it has high-grade silver, but it also has significant zinc and it has rare earth metals. So there's quite a cornucopia of elements to be explored for in this property area. We were in there again this field season, and we identified the McKellar trend, which is where we focused on, and we will be going back in there in the thaw to do some more work, as well as more work on the diatreme. And we haven't yet got to Gold Bar Lake, so there's still a lot of exploring to be done on the McKellar property. Really exciting. Everything we've seen there so far just fills us full of enthusiasm for further work. Now then, structure, structure, structure. That's what it's all about. And this was a structural analysis that an international guy of repute did for us. And without getting carried away, this is that 23 million ounce Hemlo mine on this structure here. And when you come to the north, on the north limb, you see there's another structure here. There's another one here. And yet again to the north, there's this one here. This is our North Hemlo, our flagship property block. And this is Essa, another one of our properties. And this is Magical. Magical is not in this presentation, but as you can see, that shear goes down through it, and so does the green, which is the prospective rock type. So a lot of structure here. Our Sugar Cube block over here is next to the Silver Lake Resource 1.6 million ounce mine here. So again, Sugar Cube isn't in this presentation because I've tried to trim it down to the time allowed. But as I say, structure, structure, structure. So this is the North Limb District, and this is like a cartoon of that structural map that I just showed you with our property, Essa and North Hemlo. And again, with these arcuate structures which mimic the Barrick mine. Greenstone belts, maybe a quick word about greenstone belts. They are areas of mafic, felsic, metasedimentary rocks, normally squeezed between large granite bodies. As I mentioned earlier, those contacts where there's a lot of interference. That's where a lot of the mineralization occurs along contacts, or shall we say the fluids that are associated with those contacts. And when you throw in a bit of faulting and shearing and mix it all up and make lots of voids where all the hydrothermal fluids can precipitate out the metals, then you get some really juicy situations, which is what you have at the Barrick Gold Mine, of course, and what we're hoping to identify on North Hemlo as well as ESSA. And we're getting towards it on North Hemlo, I must say. We'll look at ESSA first, okay? Now, here's the shear that goes through the middle of ESSA, and we've confirmed on the ground that it does exist. As you can see, there's anomalous showings to the west off our property just, and there's anomalous showings to the east. So there is credence to the vector and the nearology that this structure is real and has potential for gold mineralization. We did take a sample further to the north on one of these north-south structures, or one of these possibly intersection of a northwest structure as well. Here's a picture of it. And Bruce McLaughlin, who's heading up the exploration for us and has done a lot of work in the Hemlo area, feels this is a dead ringer for Hemlo-style rocks. So we're really enthused about ESSA. We haven't got all the results back yet of all these soil lines across the grid, so there's still a lot of expectation and a lot of hope to come in the future, but certainly we're starting to put together the ingredients. We've got the structure, we've got some geochemical anomalism, and we've got the shear. So all looking good. Oh, and lest I forget, we've got the plutons as well, the big lumps of granite which squeeze these greenstone belts, and where most of the hydrothermal fluids emanate from. So yeah, all the ingredients at ESSA looking good. Future work, as you can imagine, is to get in there once we get the results of the soil lines and do some further sampling, stripping and drilling as and when we should. North Hemlo, this is our flagship property. It's the one we listed on. This map here shows the high resolution magnetic survey that we had done over the whole of the property. The background was the previous mag available by the government. So you can see we've enhanced the situation significantly. Here's one of the arcuate shears, and here's the other one in the south. Okay, you can see lots of other structures, and this one in particular, and I think also this one, when they're traced far enough, they also intersect areas of gold mineralization. So as I said, it's structure, structure, structure. Originally, the North Hemlo block wasn't one contiguous block, but when we acquired property from Power Metals, that brought the pieces of the jigsaw all together, so it's one big contiguous block. We have joint ventured off this part, PESIM 2, to Palladium 1, our neighbours, and they have been drilling that with a huge degree of success so far. We'll come on to that here. Okay, so here we have, this is the PESIM 2 area that's joint ventured to Palladium 1. The inset here, hopefully you can see it, is some of the drill results, some of the better drill results, obviously, that have been publicised by Palladium 1 to date. That they are feeling that this West Pickle Lake discovery is part of a 20-kilometre long nickel copper sulfide belt. This is their most westerly showing, other than the joint venture area. But interestingly for us, this hole here that they drilled, the results haven't been published yet. This is on another one of these feeder dikes, which, as you can see, even from their interpretation, trends onto our property, which is 100% owned by First Class Metals. So this is a piece of the core from Palladium 1's drilling. You can see the nickel copper sulfides in it. It certainly looks very juicy. And yes, we wish them all success on our joint venture property. This photograph, this is from the Dead Otter Lake, which I've nicknamed Dolt. partly because I really don't like the idea of talking about poor dead otters, but there you go. So the DOLT trend, historically, there was a 3.7 gram or parts per million gold and nearly 5% molybdenum. This is critically important in that molybdenum is one of the pathfinder elements seen at the North Hemlo mine. And it's not a common occurrence in these Archean greenstone orogenic gold deposits. So the fact that we've got gold and we've got moly, as it's colloquially called, in the Dead Otter Lake trend is quite important to us. We have identified that trend now over just over 3 kilometers. It's anomalous, can't give away too much because we haven't put out that press release just yet. Watch this space. But we're encouraged by what's happening in the DOLT trend. So much so that we're pushing ahead with the exploration permits, which would allow us to do some drilling in the upcoming field season. How am I going for time? I've got, yeah, right. Okay, let's horse on. Sunbeam Project. This historic gold mine stopped production in 1905. It was quite a rich one, and some of the grades that have been reported are multi-ounce grades. The only production figures are here, and these are about 10 grams to the ton, which isn't too bad. I wouldn't mind a couple of million tons at that for sure. But it hasn't been explored, shall we say, systematically using contemporary methodology. And that's the bit that excites me about it, is that it's potentially high grade. We'll flick onto this slide here. Again, for the people who like rocks, there's a sample of the old spoil heap. But what's really attractive about the Sunbeam Project is not only that it's a high-grade gold mine, but there's other significant occurrences along this amazing trend. Well, actually, there's 3 trends. You've got the Pettigrew, you've got the Sunbeam, and you've got the Roy trends. So, I mean, you can see the length of those. There's potentially 10 kilometers of each of these trends striking through our property. Well, it's ours to be once we fulfill the purchase agreement. The details of the deal are on the deck somewhere. You can read them at your leisure. These are some of the drill results that that were identified historically. 3 grams, 13 grams, 93 grams over half a meter. It's crying out for some systematic drilling to pull the picture together, which is what we will be doing once we've conducted our deep dive on the historic information. Exploration permits are already in place, which is a critical thing, obviously. So once we've conducted the archaeological study, which the First Nations have requested, and identified our drill targets, then we're good to go for the drilling. Drill rigs are a bit of an issue in Ontario at the moment, so it's a first come, first serve, but we're putting our feelers out there. I'm not going to dwell on the ZigZag because we haven't signed it up yet, but we're in advanced negotiations with the owners of ZigZag. You can see some of the grades here, 2 to 3% in places in grab samples at surface of lithium oxide. It's a hard rock lithium project in a belt that has quite a number of other hard rock lithium projects identified. It's also quite close to the Seymour Lake development, which is going to be a large hub for potentially toll treating lithium projects going forward. So that comes on stream, I think, in 25. So there's a lot going on for this one. So we just have to ink the agreement, and then we'll be in there like Flynn doing the exploration. Again, exploration permits are in place for ZigZag. So in summary, I'm not going to rush through all the properties again. Hopefully I've given you a bit of a flavor for them. Not only do we have the gold at North Hemlo, but we have the nickel and the copper at North Hemlo. We have the potential for silver at Enable. We've got lead, zinc, rare earths at McKellar. ESSA is unknown yet until we get all those soil sample results. And of course, we've got the potential of the lithium at ZigZag. I'm going to slow down for a moment here because this is a section which is incredibly important, and it's one quite close to my heart as far as Northwest Canada is concerned, and also because of my work in Africa, Australia, South America, Papua New Guinea, and that's the Indigenous communities. I've been working, I hope, quite closely with the First Nations in Northwest Ontario in order to make sure that they feel that we share their respect for the environment, that we acknowledge that they are the traditional bearers, owners of the land, and they are really just the custodians of land for their future generations. So we've taken the attitude of working with them before we go to the Crown, the government, to apply for our exploration permits. And so far it's a response which they've respected and acknowledged that they really like. So I'm trying to work hand in hand with them. My role is split between the technical, shall we say, and the cultural, but it's an incredibly important aspect of moving forward as an exploration company in Ontario. The nuts and bolts, as I said, we listed in July. The first 6 months of trading has been stellar. We've hit almost 18 pence before Christmas in trading. We're still going strong. We've got a lot of news to come yet. A number of the shareholders are still locked in for a while yet. We feel that we've got a lot of support in our investment community, in the shareholders, and we're trying to respect that with giving them a regular news flow. Yes, exploration companies will be marked on their success, and yes, we're working through the money. We're trying to put as much of the money as we can into the ground so we can increase the shareholder benefit, and obviously at some stage we will have to go back to the market to raise more funds. At the moment, even with a modest drill program, we are funded through this year. So to sum it all up, experienced management team, a good board of directors, technical team, thanks to Emerald Geological Services, with minor contributions from myself. We seem to be doing the right thing in the exploration. We've got a lot of experience on the board with operating in Canada, 8, soon to hopefully be 9 very prospective blocks in Northern Ontario. A lot of smoke, shall we say, at this stage, and we're just fanning the smoke to get to the embers and then the fires of a reasonable discovery and take it from there. We've got a good listing in London. We've got a loyal shareholder following, and we're trying to perform in order that loyalty is justified. That's about it, ladies and gentlemen.
You spoke with great enthusiasm about some of the different license areas you've got, and questions around focus and prioritization. How do you manage that portfolio? And then looking at other opportunities, do you have a limit, or how many properties or licenses do you think you can manage and develop simultaneously?
Okay, priorities, focus. Let's deal with that one first. The priority has to be, as an exploration company, to drill. So that is our priority. We have an exploration permit on Sunbeam, so we're pushing that along. Once we've completed the archaeological study and we can find a drill rig, and I don't think it'll be too hard to find drill targets. So that's a priority. The exploration permits for North Hemlo and ESSA have been prepared, and they will be with the First Nations soon for them to look at, and then we go down the bureaucratic Crown route. So those have to be our priorities. However, obviously, whilst those cultural and bureaucratic things are being looked at, focused on, we'll have people out on the ground doing further exploration on Enable, for example, on ESSA, Magical, and the other licenses, Coco East, that some of which I didn't mention in this one. So, and the other thing about exploration also, Roland, that we have to remember is unfortunately, there's up to 6 weeks turnaround on the assays. So you go onto a property, you spend a month there, you take the samples, then you move on to the next property and wait for the assays to come back from the first one. So it's not a case of you sitting still after you've been out exploring. It's, as I say, it's another form of conveyor belt, shall we say. The second question, how many properties can we handle? My attitude at the moment, and I'm speaking for myself, not necessarily the board, is that unless we identify an opportunity that is contiguous to one of our properties or is another boutique mineral, shall we say, like lithium, or it's an absolute no-brainer like Sunbeam, then I think for the moment we will be content with what we've got. But as I said earlier, exploration is a conveyor belt. You do your best, you explore the property, and if you don't come up with the sufficient encouragement to go back another time or to drill, then that property gets left by the wayside. And so therefore, shall we say, you have a void, so then you go and pick up another property. You can't rest on your laurels. You've got to be exploring, you've got to aim to be drilling, but in the meantime, you can't fall in love with a property. You've got to assess them, appraise them, and then rank them, and some fall off the end.
Super,
I mean,
thank you.
Unfortunately, statistically, it's normally the third or fourth company that discovers something on a property. So there's always that hesitance to say, we've done our best, we haven't found anything, but yeah. Sorry, I interrupted.
That's right. I think it's very interesting. I had a question coming. I read it here word for word. Are you concerned about power? I think it's Power Metal selling down in summer. Have you considered piggyback warrants to keep them interested?
We have a very good relationship with Paul and Power Metals, and it's in their vested interest, we believe, that First Class Metals does well. And the reason for that is their business mechanism is to assess, is to identify areas of potential, form spin-off companies, keep a percentage in them. So it would be nose-face scenario if they were to sell us down. They have warrants, and I'm sure in due course they will be exercising their warrants.
A couple of quickies then. First up is just a clarification on the location of North Hemlo. How far are you from civilization? Are you close to any population? Is it very remote?
North Hemlo is 50 miles from Marathon, which is the main town in the area, which is the town that services Barrick's Hemlo gold mine, as well as the PGM mine to the west of Marathon. So when we're isolated, but I wouldn't say we're remote. It's not like we're up in the Yukon or the Ring of Fire in the far north.
And then the final question is about news flow over the next kind of 3-4 months. What are the key things to look out for over, I guess, the spring-summer period?
The key things are the results are now coming in. We would like to have an orderly news flow of the work that's been done during last field season. We haven't reported results yet on North Hemlo, for example. We haven't reported ESSA, but we haven't got all the soil samples back from ESSA. We haven't reported McKellar. The only property that we've reported on so far from our field work of last year is Enable, and that's why I laboured the point at the beginning of the presentation on Enable. That's the only one in the public domain.
So there's lots to look out for.
Yes.
Lovely.
I mean, as we speak, we're flying a heli survey over Sugar Cube with high-res magnetics as well as EM. The guys are out there every day. They've stopped now because they're going to the Vancouver seminar, taking lakeside sediments, and they've taken up until last like 50 lake sediments on North Hemlo. So the work continues even in the winter.
Well, sounds terrific. Marc, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for joining us and introducing us to the company.
No, thank you for having me. Much appreciated. Take care.